Wow, we're back. It's Sick Talks number 98. 98 year I graduated from college. Good year. Moved to New York City. It was a very different place at that time. They weren't shooting Daredevil outside my house while I tried to record a podcast inside.
I feel like Sisters with Voices, SWV, had a big year in 98.
Ooh, yeah. I mean,
earlier than that, but something was happening.
SSWWVV.
Do you know who said that? That's Pharrell's voice. Young Buck Pharrell, as a producer, said the SWV and looped himself into the song.
How about that?
I got a lot of
now he's making bell bottom pants in Paris. The career arc.
Aren't we all?
Well, I hope so. I don't know. I don't have the right lengthy stems for the bell bottoms. Anyway, guys, this is Sick Talks number 98. My guest here is Jason Kreher. He is joining the Two Timer Club. And Jason actually has the singular distinction of having done both a 5 questions with and a Sick Talks previously. So you are our most frequent guest here within the franchise, Jason. How does it feel?
It's like the Alec Baldwin of SNL club when you get up to that level.
Yeah, you're more like Martin Short, but you know, same story.
Is there anybody with a more prolific A+ collection of clips than Martin Short as Jiminy Glick? I've been watching for 20 years. And there's new ones on TikTok every single day that I've never seen. It's blowing me away. It's more unbelievable comedy than anybody else I follow.
This is why Trump wants to annex Canada, because the Canadian work ethic is just that.
Some high quality timber and lumber in those comedians.
Yeah. You know, when I started working with Canadians in the early 2000s, I learned the expression "fucking the dog," which was about it's a way of expressing like you're not doing anything, like you're just sitting around, you know, fucking the dog. And I always thought that was a really wonderful aphorism.
That doesn't feel very Canadian.
Not an aphorism. I'm sorry, you misused the word aphorism. What did you say?
Yeah. That doesn't feel very Canadian to me. That feels a little spicy for our Canadian friends.
Well, for what it's worth, I worked with a bunch of spicy Canadians. They were muy caliente. In any case, Jason has gotten us off to the weirdest podcast intro section ever, which is par for the course for you.
You did this by yourself, bud. You're here. You got yourself in this mess. Now get yourself out.
I'm going to get myself out. But Jason's here because we're breaking news. We broke the news that Jason was headed to a previous job previously, and now we're breaking the news that he's headed to a new job as the chief creative officer at Dejan, right? You've headed over to Dejan, the Experiential, the Experiential company. I'm not even going to put a further name on it. Congratulations on the new gig.
Thank you. This is it's another planet, but man, the more I get into it, I've been there like 3 weeks.
Okay.
Where now, you know, you're breaking it. Well, it's being broken as we speak. And
just like the internet.
And it's another planet, but man, this is where it's at. It's
okay, so talk. Okay, so ostensibly the show is about things that I, you know, people that I think are interesting are reading, paying attention to, you know, like obsessed with, shall we say? And we'll get into that in a little bit. But I want to understand a little bit better, like why you've made this move, because it's you are, and we know each other from your years in the advertising business, and you have had this amazing creative career, both as a writer, maker, doer, director, etc., and then as an executive and as somebody who's led teams and so on. But this seems like a company that makes, I don't know, parties or something like that, not ads. I got the impression there was a thesis involved here, and I want to understand that. Like,
yeah, no, it's funny. It's only now just occurring to me how perfect this debut is with you. Do you remember the project? Of course, you remember the Uniqlo thing we did here together.
Of course.
Do you remember the very specific one, which was the vending machine idea that we had?
I don't know if I remember the vending machine. I remember the wall of socks.
The wall of socks, but it was also, we had one be like a human robot claw, and we had like, it was just immersive, based in a window,
Okay.
branded activation that was unbelievable. And it was like a back of the deck thing that doesn't get made.
Got it.
And this place is the one that makes them. So
Got it.
they are, they were born of fashion. The founder, Dejan, is this incredible design genius talent. And he created this company where you do a project and then they just like you so much, everything keeps getting bigger. So it started in fashion. It went to, they did Virgil's last show for Louis Vuitton. They do like Snapchat and Vogue at the Cannes Museum across from the Palais. Like they do all of these incredible IRL things, and they've never really talked about it. It's been like they didn't have a website for a decade. Like it's this, if you know, kind of underground thing.
Oh, interesting.
But so you've got this craft and this like attention to detail, and fashion is so exacting in its like execution and the way that the it comes across. So that's where it was born. But the more they have gotten into it, the more that people see value in like, oh, bring that, human connection. I feel like human connection is maybe going to be the new storytelling, is the like catchphrase we all say.
Well, it's interesting. Kyle, the writer Kyle Chayka, last week wrote a piece in the New Yorker. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But it was, or not in the New Yorker, in One Thing, his newsletter last Tuesday, which is titled "Conversations Are the New Unit of Culture," and we crave interactivity and multi-sided discussions in the podcast era. And I have it bookmarked because it sort of fits into a whole thesis I'm developing around super formats and parasocial media and so on. I'm moderating a panel next week to talk about some of this, but get your tickets at brandsandculture.com. Use code Ben25 for 25% off.
And a free tote bag.
Oh man, we got to talk about tote bags in a minute. Actually, I want your take on tote bags, but I think you're right. It is the notion that the idea of word to mouth is back again in primacy as the most effective transmission of an idea to an audience, and that the best way to create nuanced and expansive word of mouth is to create experience. And so it makes sense.
It's, there's the old chestnut now, like young people don't crave material items, they crave experiences. Like there's a lot of chatter around it that you can kind of ignore, but it's twofold for me. AI is going to chomp through a big part of marketing, which is like the efficiency and the gather, like it's all kind of solved. But the thing that there's no cheat code to is, you call it human truth, you call it brand voice, you call it connection. There's like, it's all the part that makes something good or effective and not. And I think
and novelty too.
And novel, and the ability to this human sniff for getting authenticity, like all that is sort of ephemeral and hard to reach. I think there's something really interesting in this is when you do IRL kind of experiences or immersive things, or if it's it's anything, it's like a tent at Cannes, all the way to a dinner, all the way to a pop-up, all the way to an entire retail strategy for a global brand.
Yep.
It's about that face-to-face thing. And what I'm realizing is somebody who was born and raised at Wieden and Kennedy, where you learn the craft is important, the output is important, but it's the idea and how you find a big idea that scales. I'm really interested. Most of the stuff I did at Wieden was, the idea was a huge film-based, gorgeous thing that touched you. And then the job was to like trickle it into all the other places where there's consumer touch points. It's getting harder and harder when you're not watching those 90s anymore. And that's not where people live. So it might make sense to do these, what are these one-on-one temporary time, smaller little things where you're like, holy shit, that connected in a way that we're proving out like a research project. People walking in and out of that thing and being like, this is effective to me, and I'm going to share it, is almost like you're doubling your investment, because it's like research, but you're doing it and you're getting value out of it.
100%. This is one of the things that informs a lot of the idea of my whole super format thesis, which is essentially that an idea as a starting point in the modern dynamic needs to be able to move B2C and have a whole series of expressions that hit the consumer touch points. And then it needs to work B2B as a generator of insight, of proprietary knowledge, of like access information, employee training, whatever the case is. And this to me is why like the newsletters and the podcast space in particular are interesting, is because you can get to that, binary direction of travel a little easier. Because like a creator is able to say, I can sell myself as a performer or a moderator, and I can sell myself as a thinker and a doer. Whereas a company needs to be much more specific about like, I am this thing or that thing, even if they're both.
Can I add a thing? I just coined something. Are you ready? In my head, I got a new
ready.
thing.
I'm ready.
Jason,
I'm ready for your coinage anytime. Yes.
You have B2B and you have B2C. Something I've seen is so important that we never talk about because maybe it feels like self-indulgent to a client is internal. B to I.
BDE.
It is crazy.
Oh, B to I. Okay. So I'm talking about B to E, to employees. In other words, internal education.
It already exists and I didn't coin anything.
No, you called it B to I, which is a new coining. We both win. Everybody wins here, especially the employees.
I've been learning here. They keep talking about showing up on a business's most important day, and a lot of that time being communicating who you are on the day to both your employees, to your closer in industry circle, is of enormous value to companies in ways that might not instantly be like the transactional A/B testing programmatic things, but sets the course for how all of those things are both received and communicated through your enterprise. So it is kind of a funny moment to be like, I think those are high value individuals. They can work for you. They can work concentric to you. But when that becomes the thing and you can test and blow them away with like a moment of connection and then test that with consumers or just complete randoms off the street.
Yep.
That's a way to sort of see how messaging and stuff is. It sounds like you already have this as a
no. I was going to say we had a conversation in 2013 with IBM about the fact that they had a distributed workforce of 400,000 people, most of whom were remote at the time, and it was just like, IBM, this gigantic behemoth. How do you gain a level of identification and emotional attachment to the company if you never see your colleagues, if you never think? And obviously, 7 years pre-pandemic, this is not a topic people were really talking about very much. And we were like, we should do a creators project, because of course Vice is coming off the success of the creators project. We should do a creators project for IBM's internal employees, essentially, like pay us to do that. It never went anywhere, but the idea of B2E as a messaging point was really interesting. And of course, you probably know that IBM's headquarters, situated in upstate New York in Armonk, was one of the inspirations for TV's Severance. So I think they might have gotten that particular kind of BDE slightly misconstrued. But yeah, I mean, Ben Stiller stole my idea, basically. So
you can probably call him. I bet he would. There's a lot of success. Needs a lot of successes. So I think
I went to his house once. A friend of mine got married at his house.
Do you ever, when you like wake up from a blackout, you're like, what does this mean? Why did I write this down? I have a contact in my phone that says Ben Stiller's agent ? And I don't have any recollection of meeting that person or why I would get that phone number, but I've got it and I'm not deleting it because maybe one day I'll need it. Should I call him? I actually know his agent.
You should definitely call him. Call him immediately. Ben would like to know how the meeting in 2013 turned into Severance. That was non-linear, but we respect it. But look, I mean, I think this is a music business trope as well, is that you have to, if you want to have a number one song, it's got to be number one in the building first, right? Like,
I like that phrase.
Cool. number one in the building. I don't know if it's a Tommy Mottola one, but it's one of the ones that I associate with Tommy, and the other one being hits solve problems. Hey-o.
That's the everybody got a plan until you get punched in the face from
Exactly. By the way, I saw somebody wearing the Mike Tyson pigeons shirt that says Kith on it. It's very funny.
I could do a whole podcast about this if you have any of your listeners that write these types of beautiful articles. I think Mike Tyson and RuPaul Charles are the same person that took two different paths. I've watched it. Like,
Okay.
I'm fans of both
Okay,
of them.
sorry. I thought you meant that they were Tyler Durdening.
Oh no, no. Like Clark Kent style.
Yeah, exactly.
You have not seen them in the room together. No, but I watched both of them have these two quotes that are identical to each other, and they're both marginalized, Black, poor, bad neighborhood kids that used entertainment and culture to break out of their thing and have become very wise about it.
Yeah.
And RuPaul has a tweet from forever ago that says, "What people think of me is none of my business." And Mike Tyson, in an interview 6 months ago, was like, "It doesn't make any difference what other people think to me. I shouldn't be listening to that in the first place." Like, it was identical. Yeah. And then I was like, well, that's oddly paralleled. And then I kind of went down. I think it really is an interesting, they're both now so spiritual. They're both so zen about things. They're both so successful in these very different ways. But it feels like, oh, that's probably the same person with like 10 degrees. And they ended up in these very different paths down the
road. Yeah, I mean, one went to Tommy. What was that drag bar on St. Mark's Place? The famous one, Lulu Chang's or something like that. Anyway, sorry. Well, I blew that joke. Sorry, guys. Never mind. All right. Well, Jason, I'm interested to know, apropos of these, like A, B to E conversations, and B, moving into new gigs. One of the articles that you pointed out as being interesting to you this week was the one that's in the FT about AI potentially replacing juniors, meaning junior employees, particularly in the finance world. A lot of like people fresh out of school are the ones who do the research reports and the analysis and the deck presentations and that sort of thing. And AI can do all of that stuff really effectively. So there's a world in which there are no juniors. Now, what then happens is there's nobody to grow into seniors. And so the seniors just sort of age over the hill and then die. And then there's nobody. That's the implication or the concern. What was it about that one that struck you?
I'm not an AI alarmist. I find that in my guess, my uninformed guess, it's going to be a collaborator, not a takeover, or there's going to be a sea change. David Drogo was just talking about not all creative needs to be saved. There's a lot that I feel is like, it's going to be positive or neutral for most of it. This dovetails with the other thing. I'm a huge work from home advocate. I love being here in my house. I love chopping vegetables in meetings underneath the Zoom thing so I can have dinner ready and have actual time. Like, I'm a huge fan, but I think I'm also established in my career. That's right. Had a lot of time when I was with other young people. And what I'm watching with my young people that are concepting is they're concepting with a blinking cursor on Google Docs. And I'm watching them not be in the room when I sweatily have to sell their idea, but I've invited them in because I know they're ambitious and interested. I'm worried about our young people personally in creative fields. And I think it was so interesting because it was the Financial Times talking about young analysts. Like, it's easy to say note-taking as if that's just some thing. Yes, of course we can use Otter AI to like take our fucking notes. It's probably pretty great. Probably better than some of the
definitely.
The first thing to go is teaching the next generation of people that do the job. Somebody has to rate. It's a little bit like our not paying attention to the planet as a resource that can go away. Like, you are going to end up very quickly with people that can't read a room. And reading a room is what comes with like those are your, I don't know anything about sports, free throw practice, dribbling. Like, you gotta fucking do it. And it's like, and we're not giving the people the opportunity.
Your ball handling skills. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it is like, it's the repetition and again, the ability for young people to be in a room with each other. You know, I want to make sure I tell everybody, like, this young generation solved something that was good. Like, I'm such a hard worker. We're a part of the family. I'm going to give you everything. It was so exploitative and it felt so gross. And they've just really tamped that down. I'm such a fan of this. It was getting out of hand, and you're not my family. You're my company. Let's all talk like that. This is a normal person, transactive business relationship we have. But when I had the ability to stay late at night. And then that's when you had the freedom for the idea to come after you've worked so hard at the logical part. The illogical part bursts up. We're losing that because it's inefficient. And it's
for sure.
but I think the efficiency, that will not be replaced with efficiency in AI idea making. It will be the flattening and the mediocring of kind of everything.
Okay, so here's an interesting thing then. You one of the things, I mean, there are many things that I like about your sort of creative brain and way of working, but one of the things that you did recently that I thought was great was the setting up the post office or the garage or whatever it was in Portland, that in the mini mall.
The DMV.
The DMV, there we go. I knew it was a government branch. But you set up a place in a remote world where people could come in and have a sort of like at will office hangout center. I was just reminded yesterday of the New York Thing store in New York that in the early aughts or mid aughts was a clubhouse for the downtown artists and musician set. There's a story last week about earlier this week about why every store now has a cafe in it. It's because we want people to bring those things in. I wonder, like at Dejan, do you then go, all right, part of our responsibility to both ourselves and to community is to create a space like that is not specifically about business or office, but is about, I don't know what, opening the aperture for creativity.
Yeah, this is when business and personal and creativity all sort of are all just culture. And I think it's like we're all feeling the need after, an unsurprisingly lonely time in a lockdown. Human connection, AI coming in and being able to like very effectively mimic a lot of the things that used to be personal contact. We're talking about AI now. Will write your cover letter, and then on the other end, that will read your cover letter, thus eliminating the need for a cover letter, but you can't not do a cover letter. So in terms of I
heard a story today about somebody who accidentally CC'd the entire company on a cover letter send internally, which is also kind of amazing. Like that is one way to make sure that you need a cover letter, is accidentally send it to the CEO.
Send it to the world. Are you talking about the Atlantic and the? No, I'm just kidding. No. Okay, so is that what we do here? That need, human need, business need. A friend, Amber Higgins, is a brilliant strategist, and she was talking about something she's noticed that's kind of a crazy one, is the credit card companies. What is the number one way credit card companies get in your face? The credit card. Their logo's on your credit card, and you are associating every time you're like, I'm going to buy it. Click, here's I've earned this. Click, all of that is going away with your just sort of phone. It's the right thing. And one way that they're dealing with that, Citibank, is it Citibank? No, Capital One has opened those cafes. There's a Capital One in like a huge bunch of markets. And it was funny that my very cool uncle I was like, what do you guys do? He's like, I do this long bike ride, and then we meet at the Capital One cafe and I kind of like, and he was like, oh yeah, I know that's kind of weird or whatever. But he's like, it's the best coffee in the neighborhood, and it's they want you to sit in there, and they don't ask anything of you, and the coffee's cheap and it's good. Like,
where is that?
Well, that's in Tampa where I was, but there's one in Portland I know, and then I've
seen. Well, no, that's the reason I ask is more so because like there is one of those down on, or at least there was a Santander one on North 6th Street in Williamsburg, which is the most useless thing ever because we have that every like myriad third wave coffees. Like we don't need that there, but Tampa probably does. Like Syracuse, where I grew up, probably does, and it's interesting to me that the places that brands lean in on stuff like that tended to be, that Tampa example maybe being the exception, but is they tend to lean in the places that are the most highly visible because they want sort of credit for doing it.
Yes.
With the company, maybe not credit for doing it with the audience. And it's just like, what do you?
This is when I'm meeting these people that are from this other planet, but the way that they talk about the strategy by which they come up with these in real life things is so smart and baked in. And I think that, not to shit on Capital One's using it in their neighborhood, but it's a different type of people usually doing like a pop-up or an event or like a space, even a retail space that has its own language of, foot traffic and things like that. But I'm really enjoying as this advertising brand brain coming in and being like, you do realize this is actually not just your KPIs of how many people signed up for X or what the foot traffic was or if you got earned media. This is actually a significant ROI boost on your brand perception because you're having really high value things. And so you would probably bring different thinking to where would they go? Is this a short-term play or a long-term play? And like, are you thinking of it as a person that does retail and what the number would be versus, oh, are you actually answering a need in Tampa, Florida for like high quality coffee and a good place to sit over in this area? Then you're going to become like why would you not become a beloved local coffee shop, even though you're a credit card, if you're doing it right and giving people value?
Well, and also, I mean, and this is part of the reason I ask about the Dejan thing, because I wonder to what extent you can set the conditions for serendipity that you, of course, cannot anticipate, but that you may benefit from in some very significant and demonstrable way in the future. An example of this, I grew up skateboarding in the shadow of a museum in Syracuse, and this summer my friend Bill is curating the art show there, and we're bringing Spike Jonze and Ari Markopoulos and a whole bunch of other people back to Syracuse to this museum. The museum certainly never set itself out to be a place where a creative community of skateboarders would hang out, much less that any of them would go on to make films and create brands and so on, and do highly influential podcasts like this one. But it just makes me wonder to what extent you're able to or encouraged to think past like the event, the moment, the IRL interaction, and more like the long-term effects.
I think that's my job. I think that's why they hired me. Yeah. Is like, I'm from a totally different background, but the DNA we share on craft and attention to detail and execution is where we speak our same language. But KPIs, value, pulling strings together from other places, I can see us talking over the top of each other. And it's exactly what you're talking about. The moment to create something unexpected is the best part about creativity. And if you're doing that in a little paid attention to science experiment of real life interactions, what is popping up out of here? Is this replicable? Is this scalable? Or is this a lesson in what the voice is and what's resonating? And it's like, again, it's hard. And how do I do this on a website? Like, we have some gorgeous GIFs on Dan's website of the like beautiful things that are genuinely like incredibly crafted, whatever. But it's hard to tell that story of, well, do you know that this one, I think we can talk about, I don't know if I can, I'll be vague. We did a Louis Vuitton, it's called LVX, and it was Louis Vuitton collaborations over the last 100 years. Basically like a museum of history, beautifully done. It's on the website, you'll see it. Yeah. It was not a retail play. This was a like, come feel the brand. But they happened to have on top a store where they had stuff. It was like an incredible multiple of people buying more Louis Vuitton stuff in that moment than it was never even their KPI. This was an event brief that turned into, oh boy, that sold a lot more than we thought it would. Maybe this is something we need to be bringing into. And that's really hard when you're in our previous world of like, this is for events. This is for marketing. This is for, it'll be the hard part of my job is like, all organizations are tough talking to each other, much less sort of gathering. But when you have shared KPIs across different budgets or places where people find assignments, that's when it gets exciting. It's like, oh man, why don't you pull this in?
I wonder. I mean, I think it's interesting. One of the let's talk about KPIs. Key performance indicators. One of the issues with experiential business generally is that KPIs are difficult because, like, by nature, there's a finite number of people that can fit into a room or an experience, or can travel by foot through, or in time through an experience, and it is dwarfed by impression level business, which is mass reach and so on and so forth. And there's never been a really good KPI of like, this is the number of people we got, this is the impact was made on them, this is the number of people that they rebroadcasted to, this is the second order effect of those people. Is there? I don't think there is. I don't think this is another thing we've been talking about for years that nobody's tracked.
we talk about it a lot, and that's whether it needs to be cracked or whether it needs to be discussed as what
That's a
are
fair
your
point.
KPIs for your business and how can this, it's clearly demonstrating ROI in a bunch of different ways. But
Right.
I think the Google AdWords metric of how they suddenly invented it and changed the industry, which is like cost per click or whatever. That's especially with AI, like the scale part and the transactional part
Sure.
and the programmatic part, that's not going away. And in fact, it's going to get easier and easier and easier to do that with AI and these messages that are tailored. Like it feels like it's solving itself via technology. The technology part, like
I'd argue that it's eating itself, to be honest. But let's go back.
well,
Finish your thought because I want to go back to that for
it
a
is
second.
because it's increasingly, there's so much chatter and noise that it's becoming like cost per click. When it was, remember when we used to be like, oh my gosh, that Coke thing got 10,000 likes, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's the same people clicking the same, like this is not real. And
Right.
you have to
Exactly.
start interrogating those numbers. What feels so nice about this is it's real and authentic, and can you and should you scale it is the top. And then also Dejan did a brilliant thing right during the pandemic when most experiential places just tanked. They found their greatest growth because they had so much, and it was basically just employees that they had, digitally savvy tech people that pivoted to these in real life, either hybrid or transferred. When you
Right.
think like how you do a fashion show and then think about online, they were doing these incredible things. They did the Snap keynote from Evan
Oh, sure.
virtually, and
Yeah. Yeah.
the Fast Company had, I was like, kind of dethroned Apple as the keynote guys because they did this virtually built in real life and like talk that
Yep.
you can watch. Like, oh, look at the potential. Why is Snap not like? Of course they're doing this virtually with like layers over of technology. What a smart way to do this, and was born out of necessity. But
Yeah.
they were able to see like, oh man, they're going to launch Fenty Beauty at a house party online that more people will go to than the house party they would have probably been able to plan in real life.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, right. And we'll see it be seen equally by the house party that they would have shot and turned into a spot and whatever the case is as an advertising object. Well, okay. So you sound, if I may, we've been friends a long time. You sound like somebody who is sort of obsessed with his new opportunity, new toolkit, new plays. And that brings up to my mind one of the other story that you, or one of the other stories that you mentioned, which is this one from It's Nice That, which is titled "I'm Obsessed: Why Following Fixations Makes Our Creative Work Better." It's a piece by Ellis Tree, who has that's almost like a nom de plume type of name, Ellis Tree.
I don't know this author, but every one of your readers read this one. It's a really lovely, smartly reported. You're starting to. It's hard to watch when some of the articles you get, you're like, this is like a bright ninth grader wrote this. This feels like what I remember great writing to be from just like a fun topic, but it's written well and researched rather than just like a dump of here's some ideas I had and some quotes to back it up.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk about that then. What are your creative obsessions, or better yet, have you seen anybody lately whose obsession you look at and go, wow, that's really great?
One I love, Bill Oakley, the writer for The Simpsons for years. He
I
wrote
don't. I mean, I'm familiar with The Simpsons for years, but not with Bill
all
Oakley.
the like seasons 1 through 11, Monorail. Like he wrote Steamed Hams. Like he's the guy. It's him and Conan that went back and forth for like all the best stuff. He is like has a second life. I'm sure he's doing quite fine with Simpsons residuals, but he is a fast food personal reviewer, and it's just a passion of his that is like he's not kidding. And you can go on and watch him be like, well, tried the Big Mac chicken sandwich, and like I've said for the last, I don't know, 25 years, you have to have more strongly seasoned meat than a chicken patty will provide you, thus it is a disappointing experience. Like he's so in it, and it is so not performative, but he's found an audience for his niche obsession that's turned into my buddy Anthony Jeselnik's a comedian. He just reads, and he's like, I've got clips. He's like, but I do he does a show every 2 years or whatever.
Right.
He has his own book club for his own self where he reads something and then reports back on it on an Instagram story in between his comedy clips. And it's like so compelling because I'd like to see what this brilliant, fucked up
Yeah.
comedian thinks is worth reading, or thinks, and hearing what he had to say about the new Onion book is like, I trust this more than even a respected critic that I know. I want to know what a comedian thinks of the Onion's history, and a person that's well read and has an articulate point of view. So watching people take their obsessions, and you can kind of tell the difference when they're like, how do I monetize this one thing I already do, versus I have so much to say about this, I cannot help but put it out in the world.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I can feel those, and I
That's
think
a
that that's
well, oh,
interesting to
I was
watch.
just gonna I was just gonna ask you what, like, you as somebody who has met with, supervised, worked for, and I would imagine hired quite a lot of creative people. It feels like that could be, like, an incredibly valuable litmus test, shortcut, like, hack to, is this gonna work or not? Sort of, tell me what you're obsessed with right now,
Oh, that's
and kind
it's a
of,
great interview question that I haven't, because you want to talk about it, and then you watch people's I'm being interviewed thing go away when they nerd out about their like
yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It does feel that butts up a little bit against the like hustle culture, side hustle, like I
But
need to take everything I'm doing and monetize it and turn it into
But no,
something.
but
You need room for
that's
joy.
that's good. That's good because I mean, because I and not for nothing. Of course, I Scott Galloway voice. Make have to make this about me, but that's the idea of Breakfast Club, for instance, is that it's just like, this is just a thing that I like to do, and it creates a platform for other people to get in and interact with one another in a way that I find inspiring and interesting. They find inspiring and interesting, but nobody's making any money at it yet. But there is a way in which it could be very easily monetized at such a point if we decide to do it. But that's not the reason to do it. And I sort of love the idea that you demand of people in your field in particular, like, you got to be obsessed with something. Like, whatever it is, like if it's spiders or if it's skateboarding or if it's like hot air balloons or whatever. Tell me about that. And yeah.
I'm trying to think what mine. I had an anecdote about a friend of mine who was gay and casually was like, "Well, what do you collect?" And I was like, I don't think anything." And he was like, "No, but what do you like collect?" And I was like, I don't have any collection." And he was like, "You have more than one of something." I was like, "I don't, books, shirts." And he was so livid because he was like, "You are a gay man in his 40s." And he was showing me his vintage thermos
Oh my
collection.
God.
And that was waning, and that was time maybe for these like Yadro figurines that he was ironically going to collect like his mom did. And I don't really have those, but if I'm going through what I'm obsessed with, I mean, you made me think of it. It's like, oh, I started the DMV to gather people that I get to talk to that
Yeah.
have obsessions.
Yeah.
So my obsession is that I'd love to hear you weird the fuck out about something that I have no interest in,
Right.
because that's so much more interesting to me than, oh, look, we share the same interest, let's like one up each other by like, did you see this, did you hear that? Like, I want to hear about your vintage perfume collection and what the scandals are. Have you ever been on hobby drama on Reddit? Oh,
No.
it's like they find these niche like
Oh yeah.
hobby horse enthusiasts, the ones that get on the sticks, the
Yeah,
dogs,
of course.
this, and
Yeah.
then like the scandal within the community that somebody was saying they were making handmade leather things, and then they had scammed everybody, but they have a different sub name. It's just long, and you get this beautiful view of a niche community no idea exists, and who the
No,
villains are in the
I
community.
am not aware of the everyday villains of hobby drama.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it's no shit. No shit. I haven't. Somebody include me on that group text accidentally, please. That would be great. Okay. Interesting. Speaking of niche obsessions, there was this story that you also picked out, which is about the greatest two-hit wonders of all time. That one came from the public announcement newsletter. I found it this morning and sent it along, and you got into it. What was it there?
Well, it started with what I have said over and over again. I'm actually really pleased when I saw the premise. I was like, oh, I'm into this. And I read the article. I was like, ugh. 38 Special, Caught Up in You, and Hold On Loosely.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is the most perfect two-hit wonder thing of all time. They could not find a criteria by which to make that a 2-hit wonder officially. They were doing like how many hits in the Billboard, and then like Aha was in there. It's like Aha is the most obvious number 1 hit wonder of all time, but they had a number 11 hit of a song I've never heard of, Sunshine.
A number 20 song. I'm looking at the list. The sun always shines on TV.
It's like that. That does not make it. And then also like Pink Floyd was one.
Pink Floyd was the number 1 2-hit wonder was Pink Floyd with Another Brick in the Wall and Money.
Yeah, nothing else from those nobodies. But then you also have these clear what Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart. I don't know what that other song is. It does not matter how it charted.
It's a Heartache is the other one from
Heartache. And then there's other ones that anyway.
It is a wild list because to your point, like Pink Floyd, who sells stadiums, number 1, with or without Roger Waters. Beastie Boys, whose hits are Fight for the Right to Party and Intergalactic, which were 15 years apart.
And Sabotage isn't in there.
At least 15 years apart.
Is known better than Sabotage?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild. And then exactly to your point, like, Stained, who has any hits at all, is amazing.
But it's all, the thing about this is like I could do 2 podcasts for an hour about this, which is the left, which is let's talk about 2-hit wonders and songs we know about that. But the right, which is data and proof and perception. Like I'm trying to think of what it was. It was like Sinead O'Connor or it's Whitney Houston. I was like, let's go on. Let's settle it once and for all. Is it Greatest Love of All? Or is it I Will Always Love You? Or actually, is it I Want to Dance with Somebody? What's Whitney's and you went in there and the number 1 thing is like $1 Million Bill, parentheses, the so-and-so remix. And I was like, get this out of my fucking face. This is a disgrace. Obviously, it's like, okay, well, she was prior to streaming, so this doesn't count. And obviously, like, but where do you get this quality data? If data does not match your perception of it, I was just very angry at that in a way that's funny because it's like, well, I can't get angry at this data, but that's not my truth.
Well, I mean, right. Well, welcome. Well, I mean, this is, I think, ultimately like the underlying problem with AI and why, exactly to your point earlier, it goes and becomes a tool or a part of a utility, essentially. Like I describe it as the electricity of the future type thing, because it is just a sort of thing that will exist and work and will adapt to how it's there and providing us. But data can be made to say anything, so it's like there's no way to get to a single source of emotional truth through that, because it's all. It
was just this article was nice because he didn't solve it. He was like, "Here's my thesis. This is like very clearly a 2-hit wonder." The other one I had was Ambrosia. I'm upset. Like the biggest part of me. Oh, do you not know Ambrosia? Oh,
okay. Sorry, I know biggest part of me. Yes, I know.
Well, and then there's other like, what is it? It's I'll think of it in a minute. It's as melodic and like 70s soft. I think they should be bigger than they are, and they have 2 songs that are of the same exact caliber. Whether it's a hit or not, I'd be fine with that. But like, he sort of talks about his thesis, and then he talks about how he did it, and then he never got anywhere that felt satisfying. It's like, well, I guess hit is a subjective thing.
Totally.
Can be. I'm listening to the Billboard hit makers, and do you know that podcast, by the way? Parade. What is it?
No, tell me.
Hit Parade, I think it's called.
I mean, Hit Parade is a long-standing music magazine, so that would make sense that it would be.
It's a guy that basically should be doing baseball stats, but he's doing them about number 1 hits.
That's amazing.
He's talking about Madonna's Ray of Light, but he's actually talking about the music industry inventing electronica to replace grunge and how it did not work. And it was a failure in this like invested thing. But then EDM came, which is the authentic version of that, and then it went this way. And that's an hour of him. And then he's just like, and obviously Madonna broke her streak when she listened to her boyfriend David Fincher and did a video for Oh Father, and that was her first song that didn't go to number 1 in 14, and thus she didn't break Michael's. Like, the knowledge he has about where these numbers end up in culture it's one of my favorite. I don't love most podcasts, to be honest, present company.
It's so funny you
excluded.
should say that, because I was going to ask you about that. You know, you said like you described DMV as a place that you could sort of collect people and listen to them, and I was like, oh, this is a podcast guy right here. He is podcasts all fucking day.
I hate them. It's well, I did learn I don't hate podcasts. Again, present company excluded. The term Ramblecast, you must have heard.
Sure, I have not actually, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, it's just like turn it on and let people go. And sometimes those are 3 hours long, and I have friends that I can ramble with. Like, I'd like some information presented to me in a that feels right to me for podcasts. So I often feel like I'm wasting my time with even if the subject's sort of interesting. So I've never found one that I listen to. I found delightful ramblecasts with a person that I like or a subject I'm interested in.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm kind of more into the Radio Lab news magazine format, except Radio Lab's been sort of, I had somebody do an impersonation of Radio Lab to me. It's like, wait a minute, are you telling me this? And it was like, oh, I'll never unhear it again. That formula is blatant that now I'm not able to enjoy this anymore. Thanks for ruining it.
Yeah, it's funny. I just launched another podcast 2 weeks ago called Hip Replacement, which is meant to be
I
sort
love
of.
That. By the way, that's subtitling. By the way, I was going to write and I forgot to write. That's a good title.
Thank you. That was what I said to Kyle when we, because it's been on my mind for a long time. And when I called Kyle, my co-host on that, and said, I here's my idea for the podcast. I am negotiable on every element of this thesis except the title. The title is the title. And if you don't want to do that title, I'll do it with somebody else. Carl
Lieberman, he's the CCO at Wyden.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
He wrote to a group chat. He was like, I have an idea for a food cart. They only serve a variety of side dishes, but they're all served cold. It's called Revenge. And our buddy John wrote back, I love it, but are you married to the name? It's a good joke.
Wait, so we're getting very inside the industry over here. It's funny, I was saying I ran into, just prior to this, I ran into the wife and of a former colleague of yours, and who is also a neighbor of mine, and she was like, so what do you do on this podcast? And I said, I talk to people that I think are interesting. And she's like, oh, like, industry? And I was like, no, not really industry. But since you brought it up, Carl Lieberman, super delicious CEO at Wyden Kennedy,
delicious,
Galactic. Jason Kreher, CCO at Dejan. John is, I don't know, it's probably John Hamm of Mad Men. Et cetera, et cetera. This is kind of be a pretty venerated little group chat there. How do you hold the hilarity in? How is there not already a food cart called Revenge?
Oh, I think we're exhausted from making ideas all the time. I love being able to have a bad idea, say it out loud, and never have to think of it again. That's like my heroin. Oh, I don't have to follow up on the production of this.
Speaking of that, okay, are you still a Tumblr guy? Is that still
nothing but?
Again,
here's my 12th podcast I've sort of set up for us for an hour, is how Tumblr, by its inability to make money and its anonymity, is the reason it is the single best platform on the internet. I will not be dissuaded from that. It's not hot. It's not first. It's not monetizable. It's like bad. And yet it is such a pleasant place to be. Mm-hmm. So easy to remove yourself from anything you find toxic. My buddy sold me on it, 19 years ago now. I've been on Tumblr, where he was like if you do it right, it's a magazine that comes to your computer every morning. It's a curated, beautiful, like, things from 12 years ago that wash up on the shores of the internet, a different outfit from the Golden Girls once a day. Like, it's just so pleasant, and I'm not being, like, bombarded. They have very weird, intense, like, it started from fan fiction. So there's a very intense, like, weird fan fiction group there. But also, like, if you don't want to follow that Tumblr advocacy thing, then it's just a lot of, like, I don't know. Yeah, again, my Golden Girls outfit of the day is just a little spark of joy that this platform brings me that I feel would be ruined by any other platform that would have it.
Of course, of course. It's interesting.
Fuck you, no fuck me, by the way, is the name of my Tumblr. Let's put a big plug in.
Thank you.
That'll help me get some numbers up for Tumblr.
Get the numbers up. Let me tell you, because the listeners of this pod are many and influential. It's funny, and I guess part of what I want to return to, because we kind of come to the end of the conversation, is getting out of the advertising business in a literal way, but still creating, let's call it, highly shareable, highly directive ideas through the space you're going. I wonder if you have any thoughts about the way that, I don't know, that the advertising and media landscape shifts and changes going forward. I'll give you a for instance that made me think of the question. So I got the new issue of New York Magazine yesterday, and in it there is like an advertorial section with Burberry, where they got 100 readers or something like that to send in photos of themselves wearing a Burberry trench, and it looks just like the New York Magazine like style survey story that they do in every issue, where they go to an event and they put up a white SIC and they take pictures of people. And I found it, like, it's very logical. I can imagine it being very easy to sell through. It gets people involved. It does a good job showcasing a very wide variety of the product. And I was just like, this is great. Why is the rest of advertising so hard? And it just made me wonder, like, why we don't do that all the time. So anyway, I guess that was not even really a question. That's just like, react to my rumination, please, now.
I'll circle back and say I don't think I left advertising. I think advertising doesn't know what it is or where. I thought
you were going to say advertising left me, which would have been a bar.
And then I click goodbye. Advertising left me. I mean, it's all. I don't know if I can say this without. Can I reduce it?
Yeah, please.
Brands want to spend money to find consumers. So, like, there's a brand part of things. That's still a part of it. Advertising, I remember Kling's thing for Ad Week 20 years ago was a bee whispering, or flower whispering to a bee. Everybody advertises. I think there's something. I loved Maximum Effort because I said, this is like how your cousins think advertising should be, which is we'd have a brainstorm and be like, that'd be funny. Do we know anybody at that kind of brand? And then we would call them, and then it would happen.
Yeah.
How can it not be that easy? It should be that easy.
This is the story of Detroiters, in other words,
correct,
the Tim Robinson film.
And I think the logic of some of this stuff, some of it is like old model. Well, I got to sell you on all this to be able to make our money for the thing that is of actual value. So I think I'm showing up at a place where it's like, this is the most obvious place where brands can meet people, make connections, and we get to do incredible work. And with technology, I'm there as a creative person because I like to do things that haven't happened yet. And I run away from things where it's like, we figured it out, like, and you're dead. Here's a place where it's all coming together. We're so boring in the industry now, and we're so exciting in the world of creating and controversy and technology. Like, it's not reflected in this industry. And I think this feels like a spot where I could just sit for a minute and work with people to make these things nobody's seen before. That's where I think this is, it's like, I guess I left advertising, but not really. I just am finding a new place where you can show up in an obvious way, like this advertorial you loved.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's not even, and look, I that response was helpful because it's not even that I love the editorial or the advertorial so much as I thought it was done well, it was effective, it was logical, it didn't seem like a heavy lift, and you could imagine repeating it, over and over and over again without a substantial loss in quality. And I wondered why you didn't do that. I think what you just said is reminded me again that the thing that it lacks for all of those qualities is it lacks novelty, surprise, and sort of a certain je ne sais quoi that doesn't need to be present every time, but does need to be present at some point regularly. or we just end up circling the drain.
When I talk about my platonic ideal for what I've done as a living, I can point to the KFC part where I went a little higher up and upstream than I ever have. Sure. And I was like, here's where budgets go. Here's where KPIs are. It's like my first big boy kind of job where I did that. And I watched fall from that a factory of making incredible things. And what I realized from that is that there is a place for all the types of things that we're talking about in a robust client's output. And I think that people speak in these big, like, if it's not new, it's dead. Like, there is that thing that you talked about is probably the simplest, most effective, most straightforward thing. But if you've solved it there, you're dead. What should Burberry do up at fucking Fashion Week that is not a practical, straightforward thing? And all of us pick our lane. And there's it's hard in all the lanes. Mine is always going to be, what is something disproportionate? I bet that thing that you're talking about was not disproportionate impact, but it was very positive. And the fact that that's solved, keep going till it's not working. Let's do this. But all the little pieces, as long as you're being and that doesn't work in the old model. You want everything to be this huge thing. It's like, no, I need to actually have lower margin, scrappy things because that has the moment to hit in culture when they're not waiting around for your perfectly executed marketing campaign. If you can do that, and I'm just up in the novel part of things because there's a value in it and I'm good at that and that's what I like to do. But I do not speak as the voice of how marketing should be. Right. Do not follow me with 100% of your anything into the dark. We are here to do something next level that will be disproportionate, and I think it's going to happen here. That's why.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I self-identify the next or at least one more rung down in that zone of the Burberry thing where it's like it's effective, it's achievable, it's built for purpose, so on and so forth. But it doesn't have to have the fancy, the high level fancy of the big idea. And so that's why I like talking to you, Jason, because you get me up, and I of course get to drag you down.
You drag me down. Beautiful relationship. And this was lovely. You've done a really good thing here. 98 of these. This is really cool.
Yeah. Well, and if I could get my shit together, there would be more, but I can't, so it's fine.
You're doing great, Bob.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, listen, Jason Kreher, CCO at Dejan and longtime friend, author, of course, of the cult classic Schadenfreuser's book, which you should look up. And also the progenitor of fuck you, no fuck me, no fuck you.
Fuck you, no fuck me, or
there we go.
Fuck you, no fuck .me, which is my vanity URL that I still pay for.
Anyway, Jason, great to hear your voice, great to see your face, and everybody, thank you for listening. We will be back next week with another edition of SIC Talks number 99. It'll be a special one, but in the meantime, take care. Hold on.